America is so packed and it's got a waiting list that if it's so bad with the existing ideas that it has, why do so many people still want to come here and not anywhere else?
Patrick Bet David brought on this woke idiot Kyle Kulinski onto his show, the PBD podcast, here on the Value Time YouTube channel, and they got into a heated debate. PBD and Kyle Kulinski did on whether or not America is the greatest country in the world. Now, obviously, on the woke side of things, most of those sort of people like Kyle Kulinski and those sorts of people don't like America very much, even though they live in America. So it doesn't make much sense. You know, they can go anywhere they want. Nobody's holding them hostage here, but they see that they hate America while simultaneously choosing to live here willingly. And Patrick Bet David is fed up with that. He's fed up with the nonsense. He's fed up with the America hating, and he schools Kyle Kulinski on why America is the greatest country in the world. Let's get into this clip here where Patrick Bet David puts Kyle Kulinski in his place and tells him and schools him on the fact that America is the greatest country in the world here live on the PBD podcast and the Valuetainment YouTube channel.
Tell me to dream on. Hey, Patrick, you're 22 years old. I'm a regular guy. You know, my parents divorced. I don't have a lot of money. My dad's a cashier at a 99-cent store. I came from Iran. I lived at a refugee camp. I'm a regular guy. There's nothing about me that I'm coming with family money, any of this stuff. Sell me the dream. Hey, Patrick, you ought to one day, ... Sell me that dream. What does that look like?
Well, I mean, I think you should do whatever it is that you want to do. And I think you should be able to have a shot to do that fairly. So in other words, I don't think you should go bankrupt if you get medical bills. I don't think you should, have student loan debt that's so extensive that you can't ever pay it back. And by the way, you also can't file for bankruptcy on it because that's the way that they wrote the laws. I don't think people should be loaded up to the brim with credit card debt. Credit card debt is at a record high right now. I just read a stat the other day, 63% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So really, to sell you on the dream, I would honestly just point at some of the Scandinavian countries and say, look, they haven't eliminated capitalism. What they've done is they've harnessed the good parts of capitalism and mixed it in with the good parts of socialism so that they have, an intelligent hybrid where somebody who's 22 years old, just getting out of college, can have a chance to do whatever they want and make it.
So, okay, so and I rebuttal because let's just say there's a classmate sitting there and his dad's an executive at IBM, hypothetically, and he's doing $600,000 a year and he lives in a nice community. Yep. Mm-hmm. He says, so Kyle, if my dad's told me if these Scandinavian countries are so great, how come you're not moving there? And why is it that 40 million immigrants choose to come to America? And why don't they choose to go to some of these countries? What do you tell that 22-year-old smart aleck?
Well, why I'm not going there is because it's fucking cold. I'm in Miami, and I'm enjoying being in Miami right now.
So if it was warm, you would go, is what you're saying?
No, because I love my country. I love America. Whenever I criticize America, it's coming from a place of, I want to try to improve it and make it better. I don't think everything about this country is bad or wrong, but I think that there are things we can do to improve it. And, there's a very famous quote from one of the founding fathers, dissent is the highest form of patriotism. In the same way that if, God forbid, we saw one of our kids behind a dumpster smoking crack behind an Arby's, we'd be like, you know what? We're going to try to get them some help.
Yeah, I can respect that. If you're trying to genuinely improve the country, I can respect that. The problem is people like Kyle Kulinski, and other people that have been on the PBD podcast and have their own shows and things like that, they're way too smart to believe these things that they're saying, right? The problem is, the point that Patrick Bet David is making and is about to really hammer home to Kyle Kulinski is that if these Scandinavian countries were so great because of these changes that you're suggesting that the United States make, then why wouldn't you want to live there? Why aren't they the greatest country in the world? What makes the United States so much better? If it's not capitalism and the way we do that, then what makes us better? Why do you live here? And the problem with the changes that Kyle Kulinski and others suggest that we make, similar to the Scandinavian countries, to capitalism, and basically just water down the capitalism that we do have, the economic style that we do have, it is a slippery slope. If we start off by doing that, giving people universal health care, forgiving debt and things like that, it is a slippery slope. And, you could say that's a logical fallacy, whatever, but that's what people say. That's what I used to say about the gay marriage thing. Whenever they legalized gay marriage, I was like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Just don't do the gay stuff in my face. Go get married in private, stay out of my face, and we'll be okay. It's not a slippery slope. What are they going to do? Start allowing men to go into women's bathrooms? Obviously that's never going to happen, right? So it is a slippery slope. It does, now there's men competing in women's sports and men using female bathrooms and things like that. So it did get crazy, it definitely did get crazy. And now I think it's kind of we're on the other side of that a little bit because people just woke up to how crazy things got, and they're like, oh, hold on, like this is a little bit ridiculous. But it did get crazy. And it all stemmed from the gay marriage thing being legalized. It was a slippery slope. And I think this slope that Kyle Kulinski's talking about here to Patrick Bet-David, I think this is a way slipperier slope, if that even is a word. It's a way more slippery slope than the gay marriage thing even.
We're going to try to get you in rehab. We're going to work on this. We're going to fix this. It's that same mindset that you apply to the country. It's, when you look at some of the things going on in this country, you say, this can't continue. I mean, we have 45,000 Americans that die every year because they don't have access to basic health care. That's something we can fix. And there's a lot of work put into convincing people that it's just a law of nature and there's nothing we can do about it. No, there's a lot we can do about it.
Okay, so let's stay on that. Hang on one second. I want to stay on this. So I want to go to the 22-year-old and selling the dream to this kid. So going back to it, I don't know who we had here on the podcast, but somebody recommends a restaurant to you. How do you and I judge a restaurant at noon? Like, let's say, hey, you know what? I've never been to Rifle before. Let's go there to eat for lunch. How do you and I judge a great restaurant?
How the food tastes, how the atmosphere is. And
then, okay, so the atmosphere meaning what? If the place is packed at noon and there's 100 people there and 20 people waiting to get inside, they're doing something right, okay? If you and I go to a restaurant at night and you're like, there's a restaurant in L.A., Rafi's Place, I go there all the time. If you go there on Mother's Day, it's a 3-hour wait, okay? Every day it's busy. It doesn't matter when you go there, right? If anybody says anything bad about the restaurant, like to say, well, my thing is I want to make this restaurant better because I think this restaurant can do, if they put the chairs this way and it's not fair to the fact that the employees and the busboys and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, yeah, dude, but
it's a good restaurant.
But it's not a good restaurant because you and I have an opinion that's a good restaurant. It's a good restaurant because it's always flipping packed, right? So if America was, and I know this is a random analogy I'm using, but if America was a restaurant, America is so packed and it's got a waiting list that if it's so bad with the existing ideas that it has, why do so many people still want to come here and not anywhere else?
Well, there's a very simple answer to that question, which is if you look at the places that a lot of these people are fleeing, they've been absolutely obliterated. They've been destroyed. So a lot of these countries have been ravaged by the drug war, whether it's, I think in Honduras, I read a fact a couple years ago, in Honduras, there's more violence than there was in Iraq at the peak of the Iraq war. So
it's a pretty crazy place.
I'm going to try to flee that. Yeah. I don't know about you. I'm trying to flee that. I'm going to try to take care of my kids. Mexico, similar situation. You have these drug cartels. Effectively, with help from our policy, we've made...
What Kyle Kulinski doesn't understand and what he's not calculating for is that, yes, they are fleeing these countries that are super heavy in violence and crime. They're terrible places to live. Kind of sounds like New York City. But jokes aside, like, terrible places to live, correct, right? So it doesn't take much to be better than these places, right? But why are they coming here when they could go to anywhere else in the world? Why are they coming to the United States of America? Why aren't they going to these Scandinavian countries that you said are so great? Why are they coming here in particular? We get it that the countries that they're fleeing are bad. Agreed. But why are they coming here?
These narco states, south of us.
Yeah.
And so you have these, gangster states that are run by drug cartels because what we've done is we did the war on drugs. We made it illegal. What happens when you make it illegal is it gets pushed underground to the black market. That's how you make the drug cartels more powerful. The same thing happened here with prohibition when it came to the mafia. We made the mafia way more powerful because we decided to make alcohol illegal. That's when they got their most power and wealth. And so a similar thing happened with the drug war. What I would do is, number one, stop intervening in those countries militarily. And that's, a long conversation we could have about the history of the U.S. intervening in that area. And number two, let's end the drug war. So in other words, just kind of take our boot off the neck of a lot of these countries and make it so that people want to stay there. Because honestly, I really believe this. I think a lot of the people who are coming here, if they felt like their home country was safe and clean and okay, then they wouldn't want to come here. I think in many cases it's a desperation type move.
But it's not just Honduras or Mexico. It's like okay, you're half Italian and you're half Polish. Is it Polish or?
Yeah. So my mom's mom is from Italy. Basically, and on my dad's side, it's more of my last name Kulinski is a Polish last name, but I think it's a little more confusing than that.
You got a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I got a little bit of everything.
Okay, but even think you take your Italian, right? You take Jews, you take anything else you take. If America is so bad that some people sell it as being so bad, why do people keep coming here? What is What is so like, okay, when we were in Iran, we had options. People were going to Spain. Some were going to Australia. Some were going to this. Only because they couldn't make it to America. But everybody's number one on the list was to come to America. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like they wanted to go anywhere else. Again, going back, that is my biggest argument, where if America is so bad, if capitalism is so bad and abusive, why do so many people who are actually leaving an abusive environment are willing to come to a place that offers capitalism, where a person who has not got the last name of Mitt Romney, his last name is Bet David, my parents haven't given me a penny. Last time I got an allowance, I was 14 years old. I'm not an allowance. I don't even know what allowance is, to be honest. I'm not even being sarcastic. I don't know what an allowance is, right? And so I come up here, I'm like, dude, I don't give a shit if you give me allowance. I'm just happy to be here. And I'm going to bring my Middle Eastern work ethic, and I'm banking on something's good going to happen to me. I don't have the money to go to school. I don't have the grades to go to school. Maybe I'm going to go in the military, get my act together, be away from some of these guys that are doing drugs, because a lot of my friends were, ecstasy, pot. They were selling. They were done. Like, I'm just got to get away from this. So I go into the military, and then I come out, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn how to. I was a bodybuilder. I'm going to learn how to sell. This is my way out. So again, for me, it goes back to the same thing. If socialism or social democracy is so amazing, why don't people go to those countries first before they come here?
Well, so I would say, number one, there is a refugee crisis in a lot of those countries. There are people kind of pouring into those countries. But number two, I think we're talking a little bit past each other, because I wouldn't say America's bad. Of course I wouldn't. I'm here. I love this country, right? The question is, I think it's just the wrong conversation to have.
You're not a capitalism guy. You're not a support.
Well, social democracy harnesses the best aspects of capitalism. Okay. So there is an element.
So maybe unpack the difference between the two.
Sure. So there's socialism, there's democratic socialism, and there's social democracy. Social democracy is a hybrid of capitalism and socialism, where basically you take the best aspects of capitalism, the best aspects of socialism, and you have this mixed system, which in theory would yield the best results. And the reason why I believe in that is because I think there's a tremendous amount of empirical evidence to those ends. So, like, for example, they do this study every couple of years, this Commonwealth Fund study, where they look into the healthcare systems of basically, a lot of the developed countries, 11 of the developed countries. And when they do that, we always rank, the U.S. ranks 11th out of 11. So we're doing worst on that front. So now when it comes to the issue of capitalism, look, I can make the argument for you here. When you look at, for example, the cars that came out of the Soviet Union, they were abysmal. They were made by one government agency. There was no competition, so you didn't get a better product at a lower price. And that's what I'm trying to avoid, which is why I believe in something like social democracy, because you can still have, particularly when it comes to consumer goods, I think it's good to have competition. I think it's good to...
It's just a naive argument, man. Like, and let me know in the comments if I'm off on this, but I just feel like it's such a naive argument, because it is a slippery slope. If we go away from being a capitalist country and we go to be a social, what did he even call it? A social capitalist, a social capital, whatever the fuck he said, social capitalist country. Who cares? If we go and we become this like hybrid, it's just such a slippery slope, and America is the most important country in the world. Whether or not you think it's the greatest, who cares? It's the most important. Everybody wants a hand in America. Everybody wants power in America, and any little chance, any little opportunity that they see to grab more power in America, they will do it. And that's just an easy way for them to grab more and more power, right? You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. That's the end goal of this whole thing. And I think Kyle Kulinski might just be a victim of that brainwashing. Let me know in the comments, though, what you think about Patrick Bet David schooling Kyle Kulinski on why America is the greatest country in the world. What do you guys think about this episode of the PBD podcast here, where Patrick Bet David and Kyle Kulinski get into a debate about America? Let me know in the comments what you think about this whole PBD versus Kyle Kulinski situation.